So in the interest of making delicious and healthy snacks and desserts, we're going to go with one that's maybe not quite so healthy, but it's healthier than the authentic original. I'm going to make churros today, one of everybody's favorite desserts at a local fair here in Belgium, and of course originally coming from Mexico, and I love Mexican cuisine, so this is a big passion of mine. Along with churros, we might also even make some spicy hot chocolate for dipping, but for now let's stick to the churros. And this is going to be a little bit inauthentic because we're going to bake these today instead of deep frying them in oil, but hopefully they will be just as tasty. So the ingredients that we need today: we need 225 milliliters of water, that's just shy of a cup. We also need 115 grams of unsalted butter. We need 1/2 a teaspoon of vanilla extract, which I'll be measuring out later. We need 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. We need 145 grams, which is a little bit over a cup, maybe cup and a quarter, cup and a third, of plain white flour. We need 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which I've actually included in with the brown sugar because they'll be mixed into the same pot. And then finally we need 3 eggs. So here we go, off to the stove. So the first thing that we've done is we've preheated a saucepan, a soup pan, over medium heat, and we've gotten 2 tools that we absolutely must have handy. We have a whisk and we have our rubber spatula. The very first thing that we're going to do is we are going to combine the water, the butter, the sugar, and the salt into our pan. You can see that's already a little bit warm. And we're just going to mix these until the sugar is dissolved. It should just take us a few minutes. I'll add my butter here for the butter to melt and everything to get nice and mixed together. We're going to cook this until it simmers lightly, and then we're actually going to take it off of the heat. And while we're doing this, we should have preheated our oven to approximately 180 degrees if we're using convection, 200 degrees Celsius, by the way, this is in Celsius, 200 degrees Celsius if we're using a regular conventional oven. I'll make sure to convert those to Fahrenheit in the description, and I'll also probably put a note right here in the video if you happen to be following along in the United States. So while we wait for our butter, water, sugar, and salt to come to a low simmer, we do need to mix our eggs and our vanilla extract together. So I'm just going to crack the eggs into this measuring cup, and the reason I like it is because it has this little pouring spout, and I'm going to have to slowly pour my eggs into this mixture later, so it's just making it a little bit easier for me. So I'm going to crack all 3 eggs into my measuring cup, and then I'm going to pour in my 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then I'm just going to mix these together with a fork until combined. Perfect. And that is our eggs ready for our churro batter. So you can see here, we've already got our little bubbles, which means we're going to remove this from the heat. I don't want to turn off the heat yet though, because I'm actually going to cook this a little bit more. We're just going to scoot over a touch, and we're going to whisk in our flour. It's very important that you keep whisking because you don't want clumps. We're going to whisk this in until it is smooth. And throw flour everywhere, because that's how we do it in Dani's kitchen. So just like this, doesn't take a lot of effort, and we're going to cook this over the heat for about 1 minute, not very long. So I'm just going to take a second to wipe the burning flour off of my stove, and then I can go ahead and cook this. We're just going to cook this for about 1 minute. It's not going to take very long. Do keep stirring it the entire time. You do not want this to burn. So now we have completely removed the dough from the heat, and we're going to slowly mix in our eggs and vanilla until it's fully incorporated in the dough. Now this is tricky. This is hot, this is cold. We don't want scrambled eggs. So it's a little bit tough to do with one person, but that's okay. We're going to manage. We're going to slowly add. People do this when they make chocolate mousse as well. So you can see here I don't have any cooked egg. I just have a nice dough still, so I'm going to add a little bit more egg. It also helps not to pour it directly into the bottom of the hot pan, but to pour it into the dough, which is a little bit cooler than the pan, and just keep stirring. Make sure you keep it moving. Alright, so what we have here is our finished churro batter, our finished dough. It should be smooth and shiny and kind of elasticy. So I'm just going to kind of stick that right there. Now, the tools for creating churros are very specific, but usually very easy to find. There's two things that you need. You need one of these little guys. This is a star-shaped pastry tip, and you kind of need the big one because we want our churros to be bigger rather than small. The other thing that you need is a pastry bag. These are little plastic bags that usually you put things like frosting in. You'll also need a single cookie sheet with baking paper lining it. So here we see all the tools that we need to create our churros. We've got our dough, we have our pastry bag and our tip, and we also have a cookie sheet that's been lined with baking paper. I'm just going to scoot this out of the way for a second because I'm going to show you how to put the dough into the pastry bag. So first things first, I had to cut the tip of the pastry bag off and put my my frosting tip inside the bag, and then I folded the bag down just a little bit like a sweater sleeve, and I'm going to hold the bag open by putting my fingers into that little fold that I made. Then I can use this hand to scoop up some of the pastry dough and slide it on into the bag. We don't want to overfill the bag because then it'll just squirt out the top, and that's no fun at all. So that is plenty of churro dough for now because we can always put more in the bag if we need it. So I'm going to scoot this back over. Now, leaving 3 centimeters or so in between each churro, I'm going to twist the top and close it off, and then use this hand mostly to push dough out of the bag and onto the paper. And I would say our churros can be about that long. So it's a little bit difficult to see at an angle, but I probably made them about 4 or 5 centimeters long. And I think I can probably do 3 churros in a line here. And that's all that we need to do. We now have our churros laid out on our pan. We're going to put these in the oven for 18 to 20 minutes, again at about 180 degrees Celsius. I'm using convection. It would be 200 degrees Celsius if you're using your conventional oven. And then, after the 18 to 20 minutes, once they're nice, golden brown and finished, we're going to turn off the oven and leave them in the oven for another 8 to 10 minutes, which is going to make them really crispy and keep their shape once they're out of the oven. See you soon. While we are baking our churros, I almost forgot we do have to make the deliciousness that we dust churros with, which is basically just sugar and cinnamon. I don't actually have a recipe for this. All I have here is like a little freezer bag from the store, and I'm just going to take a big old scoopy of sugar, maybe a couple scoopies actually of sugar, because we're going to coat all of these delicious churros in sugar and cinnamon. So I did 3 scoops of sugar, and then I'm just going to sprinkle cinnamon until I'm finished sprinkling cinnamon. I like lots of cinnamon. I don't want equal parts cinnamon to sugar, but I would say what I probably have here is maybe 2 tablespoons of cinnamon to, I don't know, a half a cup of sugar or something like that. And then I can just make sure to close my bag and kind of give it a mix up. And then what we'll do is, once our churros have come out of the oven after their 2 bakings, remember, because we have to bake the churros and then we have to let them sit in the oven for a while to dry out a little bit, that 8 to 10 minutes. Once they've done that, then I can dump them into my bag here and shake it up and get them coated in sugar and cinnamon. So what we have here are some absolutely wonderful looking baked churros. Now, we don't want to let these cool down too much before we put them in cinnamon sugar, because once they're cool, the cinnamon and the sugar won't actually stick to them. We've got our bag here, so you can see it kind of off to the side of the camera. I'm actually going to move the churros over, and this pan is still hot, so I don't want to touch it. And just a few at a time, and I should have a plate, or else I won't have anything to put my finished churros on. Just a few at a time, We're going to pop our churros into the bag, so I don't know, 1, 2, 3, and just give them a little toss, a little shake to get them nice and coated in the cinnamon sugar. We're going to pull them out, just shake off the excess, and then we can set them aside and continue with the rest of our delicious treats. And that, my friends, is a baked churro. Enjoy.